The mist-covered fields of Ireland hide many ancient secrets, whispered from generation to generation. Among them is the chilling legend of the Dearg-Due, the red blood-sucker, a spirit that rises from the grave to wreak vengeance on those who wronged her in life. But the Dearg-Due is more than just a ghost story. It is a tale of love, betrayal, and eternal hunger. This is the story of Dearg-Due.
It was a crisp autumn evening in Waterford, where the wind carried a hint of decay and the whispers of forgotten tales. Seamus, a young man with a restless heart, walked along the cobblestone streets, lured by the warm lights of a secluded tavern at the edge of town. Inside, laughter and music swirled. But one figure in the corner demanded his attention. She sat alone, her beauty like a siren's call, a woman with flowing golden hair that shimmered in the candlelight and eyes like emeralds that seemed to pierce his very soul. Her pale skin glowed softly against the darkness of her crimson gown, and her lips curled into a knowing smile. Seamus, entranced, approached her table. Her voice was like silk as she beckoned him closer, offering tales of distant lands and promises of eternal love. Time seemed to melt away as they talked, his senses dulled by the intoxicating fragrance that surrounded her. Hours later, the tavern grew silent, and the patrons disappeared, leaving Seamus alone with the woman. She suggested a walk beneath the moonlight. He followed her through winding paths to the edge of the village, where an ancient graveyard loomed. As they stood by an old, crumbling tomb, her demeanor changed. The warmth in her eyes turned cold, and her smile twisted into a sinister grin. Seamus tried to step back, but it was too late. She leaned in, her lips brushing his neck, before her sharp nails gripped his arms like iron. A searing pain followed, as if his very life force was being drained. The moonlight illuminated her true form, her beauty now terrifying, with blood-red lips and hollow, glowing eyes that burned with hunger. Seamus's lifeless body was found the next morning, pale and cold, near the gravestone where they had stood. The villagers whispered of the Dearg-Due, the blood-drinking spirit of the graveyard. They piled stones over the ancient tomb, hoping to trap her once again. But as the sun set and the mist rolled in, a faint melodic laugh echoed through the hills. The Dearg-Due had claimed another victim, and her legend would live on to haunt the hearts of men.
The story of the Dearg-Due dates back to Celtic mythology, a time when the boundary between the mortal and spiritual worlds was thin. Legend tells of a beautiful young woman with golden hair and eyes like emeralds, born to a small Irish village. Her beauty was unmatched, and her kind spirit captivated all who met her. Yet her fate turned grim when she fell in love with a kind-hearted farmer, and they had made plans to marry. But her father, blinded by greed, forced her into marriage with a much older, cruel, and wealthy clan chieftain in exchange for money and land for himself. The young woman's new husband treated her very badly. He kept her locked in a tower and would take delight in hurting her just to see blood on her pale skin. Trapped in misery and suffering abuse, her heart grew cold. The anguish consumed her, and eventually, she died. The villagers took her body and buried it under what was known as Strongbow's tree. There was an old Irish practice of placing a tall pile of stones on the graves of the recently deceased so they could not rise again. But for some reason, on the night of her burial, this did not happen. Some say it's because the villagers felt guilty for not doing anything to save her from her wicked husband. Death didn't end the woman's pain, it gave her a new life, one of vengeance. Rising from the grave, she became the Dearg-Due. First, she visited her childhood home. As her father lay sleeping in his bed, she kissed his lips and sucked all of the air out of his body. As she made her way to see her husband, she came across him staggering drunkenly home from the tavern. As her lips met his, she not only sucked the air from his lungs, but also the blood from his veins. After drinking the blood of her evil husband, the Dearg-Due felt invigorated and alive. This feeling gave her a hunger for blood that couldn't be quenched. The spirit of the young woman continued to prey on young men, luring them with her beauty, only to drain them of their blood. The Dearg-Due is not a traditional vampire with fangs and capes. Her beauty is her weapon, a facade used to seduce her victims. She appears as a stunning woman with a pale complexion, flowing hair, and a captivating presence. Yet beneath this allure lies a monstrous hunger, her lips stained red with the blood of her prey. Unlike other creatures of the night, she doesn't fear garlic or crosses. She strikes silently, often under the light of a full moon, targeting men drawn to her ethereal beauty. How do you recognize the presence of a Dearg-Due? Some say you'll feel an unnatural chill in the air or sense a sweet, almost intoxicating fragrance that beckons you closer. If you hear soft whispers in the wind or feel an unexplainable pull toward the graveyard, beware. To prevent her return, villagers often place heavy stones over her grave to trap her spirit. Celtic symbols or iron stakes are also thought to ward her off, as they disrupt her connection to the otherworld. In ancient times, communities gathered to perform protective rituals, especially during Samhain, when spirits were believed to roam freely. Offerings of bread, milk, and herbs were left near grave sites to appease spirits. The Dearg-Due story became a warning. Treat women with kindness, for their pain may echo far beyond the grave. One chilling account tells of a young man from Waterford who vanished after courting a mysterious woman at a tavern. His body was found days later, pale and lifeless, with no apparent injuries. Elders in the village whispered of the Dearg-Due, saying her spirit had claimed another victim. The tavern was abandoned, its patrons too fearful to enter after dark. Today, the Dearg-Due's legend has evolved, appearing in books, films, and discussions of feminism and vengeance. She represents not only a warning of unchecked desire, but also a symbol of empowerment, an avenger against male cruelty. The Dearg-Due continues to haunt the imaginations of storytellers and audiences alike. The Dearg-Due is more than just a creature of the night. Her story reflects the deep wounds of human suffering, the power of vengeance, and the enduring spirit of folklore. From ancient myths to modern media, she reminds us that some tales never truly die. So, the next time you walk alone on an Irish night, listen closely, for you may hear the call of the Dearg-Due.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.